got 55 quart-sized jars of applesauce, as well as 48 pints of apple butter. Hey you guys, Kari here from the Alfred Homestead, and today I wanted to share with you guys everything that we preserved this summer. So we're still in the swing of things. It's not as crazy as it was in July or August. Fall garden out right now, which isn't very big. But I wanted to go ahead and share with you what we did get done. So I'm going to share some pictures and some clips during this video because unfortunately I didn't film the whole process of everything. I hadn't even started my channel yet at that point, so I'm sorry. Next time I will film everything for you. Okay, so first and foremost that I always start canning, and actually I started my first can of pickles in July. So last year I had not started until August. So that was kind of because of the weather. We had warmer weather sooner, and so I actually started a whole month earlier with my pickles than I normally do. I will leave a link down below what pickle recipe I use. It's awesome, you guys. The best. The pickles are crunchy and they stay crunchy. I've had pickles, I still had some pickles from last year that were crunchy when we opened up this summer. So I will link her video down below to show you guys the recipe that I use. So total, I had 90 jars of pickles. I did spears and coins. So that's definitely a year's supply of pickles for us. So yay. And I water bathe those. It's quite simple. It's a quick process. It only takes, I think, like 20 minutes in the water bather, and that's it. So very simple. And I definitely had more than enough cucumbers to go. I could have done more than 90 jars, but after 90 jars, I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with the pickles at this point. So any extra cucumbers we had, we gave to the chickens or the rabbits, or we ate them fresh. So after I had all the pickles done, we got a couple of bushels of corn. We have not tried growing corn yet. We got them from our neighbor right down the street who grows a ton of it every year, and so we were happy to support him in that. And we got a few bushels for us to go ahead and freeze and or dry. So I dehydrated quite a bit of corn. I want to say about 20 ears of corn were dehydrated and then stored in glass jars. I also froze quite a bit of that too because there's just nothing like fresh corn, and it will stay good in the freezer just as well. So, so far we got about 90 jars of pickles. We've got the couple of bushels of corn, and then even bigger was we bought 20 bushels of apples. So that was pretty exciting. There's a local orchard probably 10 minutes down the road from us, and they were selling this as deer feed because these were the apples that fell to the ground, and legally they could not sell for human consumption. However, they were totally fine. I would say at least 50% of these apples were totally fine and perfect, like no blushes or bruises at all. And then the other half, maybe they were smaller, or maybe they did have a bruise or two on them. So let me go ahead and tell you what we did with that. So first, we had to sort through literally 1,000 pounds of apples. I were up until 9:30 that night, outside with our flashlights and everything, and our barrels and buckets to sort through all of these apples. We sorted all of the bad ones that weren't worth processing from the apples that were worth processing. So I would say we got at least 50% of those apples worth processing, and probably more like 3/4 of it we kept for us. And then the rest of it was given to the deer. We left some out for the deer in the woods, and because it will be hunting season soon. And we saved some as well for the chickens, which they went so hard on that stuff. But we also saved some for the black soldier flies. They get the last bit because the black soldier flies will literally eat anything. It doesn't even matter if the apples have already long gone bad and they're fermenting. They will still get a lot of energy out of that food. So we were happy to use every last ounce of these apples. So what we did with the apples that were good was we put them into a couple of 35-gallon barrels. So I think we ended up with 3 full barrels of apples that we kept inside because it would have been too hot to keep them outside. They would have just gone bad in a matter of a day. So we kept them inside, and I kept as much as I could in the fridge as well. I just kept fresh eating ones in the fridge, and then we literally had these huge 35-gallon barrels sitting inside in our kitchen for 4 days. 4 days is how long it took to process 500 pounds of apples for us. So my husband had off on these days, and that's the only way we got it done. We had the little apple cranker that, it peels them and cores them and slices them all in one motion. Y'all, I highly recommend it. If you're gonna be making as much as we did, you're gonna need it. There's no way we would have been able to process this many apples without it. So my husband had that sucker going, and he was just cranking them out. So he'd get one apple done in like 20 seconds and then on to the next one. And then I would be on the other side of it, getting any bad bits out and going ahead and processing those. So because we had over 500 pounds of apples, what we did was 2 things. We made applesauce and apple butter. Why? Because economically, that was just the best thing that we could do. We needed to pack these apples down as much as possible. I didn't have time to sit there and dehydrate apples. I didn't have time to sit there and make apple pie filling and all those things because I had too many apples on my hands and I didn't want to let them go bad. So I made plenty of fresh desserts for the apples. So we did not, I made fresh apple pie, apple cobbler, apple crisp, all the things, stewed apples, you name it. But as far as canning goes, we focused on the applesauce and the apple butter because A, it meant less jars, and B, it meant we could maximize our time and our space because you also have to pack those jars somewhere. Like where are you gonna put those jars? We only have so much space and so many jars and so much time. So I made a very thick applesauce. I made it as thick as possible because again, that means you're using up less jars. So that means I have more space in my kitchen. I have space to put them, and it's less processing time because I'm not having to do another batch. So you'll see here in this clip, I have the full thickness. You can see how thick it is. It doesn't even pour out of the jar. And I dilute it 50-50 when I'm ready to serve it. So if I had wanted, and I dilute it to the thickness that is like maybe a little bit thicker than store-bought applesauce. So it's not too thick, it's not too thin. But if I had just canned it the thickness that I wanted it when I wanted to eat it, it would have taken over 100 jars to can. Y'all, no. Think about all that time. You're spending like an hour per set of jars to can, not to mention the actual jars themselves now are taking up space and cost money. So it was just more economical to have those quart sizes packed with as much as possible. And then when I'm ready to serve it, I will just dilute it so it's 50% water, 50% applesauce, and that gives us a really nice thick applesauce. Not too thick, not too thin. And it's the same thing with the apple butter. The apple butter, you completely puree, so it's, again, maximizing your space in those jars. The half pint size is what I see a lot of people doing. We did quarts because they're mainly just for our family, and we'll go through a quart in a week or two. So that's not a problem for us. We did do some half pints for gifts. So those are great sizes to have for gifts, but for us, we just kept the regular pint size. And that was fine too. That maximized our space. We didn't have to use so many jars. We got 55 quart-sized jars of applesauce, as well as 48 pints of apple butter. So that is all a year's supply of applesauce and apple butter for our family. And trust me, we go through so much applesauce and jams. So this apple butter will be kind of like our jam for the year. Y'all, that stuff's getting so expensive out there. You know, like the jelly that we normally buy at Kirkland, the organic strawberry jelly, went up $3. I think it was $6 originally, and now 6 months later it's $9. Okay, so we're just gonna use apple butter in place of strawberry jelly. You know, we're using it as a replacement for jelly. We're using it as a replacement for butter. I mean, it goes on toast, on French toast. It's phenomenal. I put it in their yogurt too. I'll just put a little teaspoon in their yogurt. It's so nice to have a homemade jam that we can use, and it costs nothing. It cost me less than $1 for a pint of this stuff. So it was definitely a lot cheaper. We paid $100 for 1,000 pounds of apples. Okay, so we saved a ton of money. We saved hundreds of dollars just buying that one batch. So we might end up buying another batch from them in October. We'll see how much energy we have for that. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But we saved hundreds of dollars. I estimate we saved probably $500 or $600 just between the applesauce, the apple butter, and fresh eating apples that we had. So definitely recommend, if you have a local orchard, look on your Facebook Marketplace and see if they're selling these deer feed apples that you can use for processing for your family. Because even if it is, even if half of them are bruised or smaller or they just don't look like the perfect eating apple, those are the perfect apples for applesauce and apple butter, because you're just gonna puree them anyways. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Make sure to check out my other homesteading videos. All right, have a great week.